Hello bookworms, it's Jade from Bedtime Bookworm and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm bringing you my winter anticipated releases. Today I'm going to be going over 15 books that are going to come out in December of 2020 and then January and February of 2021. That's what I consider to be my winter. I know it's a little bit weird to have 1 month in 2020 and the other 2 in 2021, but that's just how I like to split up my seasons here on my channel. In today's video, I have a mix of fantasy books, a couple of sci-fi books, and surprisingly a number of thrillers or mystery thrillers that are coming out in the next few months that I'm really excited about. And as always, there's a mix of YA and adult books in this video. Just because these are books that are coming out that I'm excited about doesn't mean that I'm necessarily going to be reading them right away. I will have another video coming in the next week or two of my winter TBR, and those are the books that I'm actually planning to read. These are more books that I'm excited about for a number of reasons, and I'll explain why when I go over each book. And for most of them, I'm just going to be keeping an eye out for reviews and see how they're received to decide if I want to read them at a later point. I also want to note that I don't usually include sequels to series that I haven't started in these videos, even though they might be popular and I might be interested in those series. Because I haven't actually started those series, I don't include them in these videos. And one last thing before we get started, for each book I will mention the release date and the publisher, but just know that I could be getting some of them wrong. I'm going to be mostly giving US dates, but sometimes I mess up and give a UK date because I don't recognize that it's UK publisher. And of course, release dates are always subject to change, although this close to release they don't usually change too much. But take all of that information with a grain of salt. And when I'm talking about genres, I'm usually just getting it off the Goodreads page, which I know is subject to human error because it's just how people shelve them. So take that information with a grain of salt as well. Okay, the first one that I am really excited about and honestly have been anticipating for a really long time because this book kept getting pushed back is A Sky Beyond the Storm by Scribd YOU, which is the fourth and I believe final book in an Ember in the Ashes series. This is a YA fantasy book and it is coming out on December 1st from Razorbill. I have read the first 2 books in this series. I read the first one right when it came out, and then when the second one came out, I think I reread the first one and then read the second one, and I really enjoyed both of them. But I haven't continued on in the series because this last book kept getting delayed, and now that this last one is finally coming out, I'm thinking next year in 2021 I will binge read the whole series. This YA fantasy is set in a world that's kind of inspired by the Spartans or the Roman Empire. It's very brutal, and the one thing that I really remember about the series is I really love the 2 main characters, and there are multiple love interests. I think there was a love square or something, which I know sounds really terrible, but I actually really enjoyed those relationships because I found all of them really plausible and they developed naturally. But I also remember the plot being pretty good and it being pretty action-packed, and there's a really good villain and things and some more great characters. I just remember I really enjoyed the first 2 books. I'm super excited that the last one is finally coming out, and I'm looking forward to restarting the series next year and being able to finish it. The next book I want to talk about is The Cousins by Karen M. McManus. This is coming out on December 1st from Delacorte Press. This is a YA mystery thriller. I haven't read any Karen McManus, but she has a couple of other books out that I have heard about. She has One of Us is Lying, and I think that one has a sequel, and then she also has another book out called Two Can Keep a Secret, and I've just heard pretty good things about Karen McManus, and so I'm interested to see what people will think of this one. This one is about a group of cousins. There's 3 of them, and they don't really know each other very well, but their wealthy grandmother, who has disowned all of their parents before these kids were born, has invited the 3 of them to work at her island resort for the summer. And it sounds like there's a lot of family secrets that get found out and just weird stuff going on, and I think it sounds pretty interesting. Okay, the next one I am kind of excited about because I really didn't know anything about the story that this one is based on. But the next one is The Mystery of Mrs. Christie by Marie Benedict. This one is coming out on December 29th from Sourcebooks Landmark. This is shelved as historical fiction slash mystery. I've never heard of this author before, but when I heard someone talk about this, I thought it sounded so interesting. So this book is inspired by the real incident that happened of Agatha Christie going missing for 11 days, which I didn't know was a thing. So apparently in 1926, Agatha Christie went missing. Investigators found her empty car on the edge of a deep, gloomy pond. The only clues were some tire tracks nearby and a fur coat left in her car, which was strange because it was cold. 11 days later, she reappears just as mysteriously as she disappeared, claiming amnesia and providing no explanations for her time away. And apparently that really happened. That's so crazy. And so this is a fictionalized story of what happened to her in those 11 days that she was missing, and I think that sounds really cool. The next book I want to talk about is Lore by Alexandra Bracken. This is a YA fantasy, looks to be a standalone, coming out on January 5th, so we're on to January now, from Disney Hyperion. And I'm primarily interested in this because of Alexandra Bracken, the author. Way back in the day, when I very first started my channel, I did read Alexandra Bracken's The Darkest Minds trilogy, which is a YA dystopian, and I really enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun with that series, but I haven't picked up any more Alexandra Bracken since then, even though she's published a few books that I'm interested in. This one is inspired by Greek or Roman mythology, and it's about 9 Greek gods who are forced to walk on Earth as mortals, and they're hunted by descendants of ancient bloodlines. And I think the main character, Lore, is one of these gods that's being hunted, or maybe she's one of the hunters, I don't really know, but I am definitely intrigued by this one. I haven't really read a ton of stories inspired by Greek mythology lately. It's something that I definitely enjoyed pre-booktube, so this one definitely caught my eye, mostly because of the author. The next book I want to talk about is Remote Control by Nnedi Okorafor. This is coming out on January 19th from Tor.com, and it is a novella. It looks like it's 160 pages. I have not read any Nnedi Okorafor yet, but she's obviously an author that I've heard a lot about. This is shelved as fantasy and science fiction, so I'm not really sure which way it's gonna go. It does sound maybe a little more fantasy, but it's about a girl who becomes the adopted daughter of the Angel of Death. And apparently her touch is death, and with a glance a town can fall. She walks alone except for her fox companion, which I love animal companions, so I'm super excited about that, searching for the object that came from the sky and blah, blah, blah. So I don't want to know too much about it, but the two things that caught my eye in the synopsis are Daughter of Death and also that she has a fox companion. That sounds pretty cool. Okay, the next book I'm excited about is Cast in Firelight by Dana Swift, and it looks like this is going to be the first in a series called Wickery. And this is a YA fantasy that is coming out on January 19th from Delacorte Press. Oh, it looks like this is going to be a duology. It says, the first book in an epic, heart-pounding fantasy duology about 2 royal heirs betrothed to be married, but whose loyalties are torn, and a ruthless enemy who threatens their world. I will say the first thing that caught my eye was the cover. I'm kind of a sucker for these illustrated covers. The other thing that caught my eye is the royal heirs that are betrothed but have kind of a tumultuous relationship. So the very last paragraph of the synopsis says, between dodging deathly spells and keeping their true selves hidden, the pair must learn to put their trust in the other if either is to uncover the real threat. Now Wickery's fate is in the hands of rivals, fiancés, partners, whatever they are, it's complicated, and I like relationships that are complicated, and bound for greatness or destruction. So I thought that little paragraph sounded really interesting. The next book I am excited about is We Could Be Heroes by Mike Chen, and this is coming out on January 26th from Mira. This one caught my eye because of the author. I've heard of the author's previous 2 books. He had a release in 2019 called Here and Now and Then. I think it has time travel, and that's one of my bookish buzzwords. And then also in 2020, he came out with a book called A Beginning at the End. It takes place 6 years after a global pandemic that wiped out most of the Earth's population. I haven't read either of those, but I remember hearing good things about those 2 books, and I was interested in them. So when I saw that he was coming out with a new book, I wanted to see what it was about. And the synopsis also has one of my buzzwords in it. The beginning of the synopsis says, an extraordinary and emotional adventure about unlikely friends and the power of choosing who you want to be. And that last part of that sentence I find really interesting. I feel like that's a theme I like to explore. But one of the main characters, he wakes up in an empty apartment with no memory and few clues to his identity, but with the ability to read and erase other people's memories. And erasing of memory or memory loss are things that I like to read about in books. And then the other main character is also searching for her past, and then it sounds like these two characters meet in a memory loss support group, and they realize the only way to reveal their hidden past might be through each other. And now we are moving on to February. The next book I'm going to talk about is A History of What Comes Next by Sylvain Neuvel, which looks like it's going to be the first in a series, and this is coming out on February 2nd from Tor.com. The only thing by Sylvain Neuvel that I have read so far is his novella The Test, and I really enjoyed that one. This is an adult science fiction, and the synopsis sounds interesting, but I'm also a little bit unsure about it. So the beginning of the synopsis says, showing that truth is stranger than fiction, Sylvain Neuvel weaves a sci-fi thriller, which is a genre that I enjoy. I like mixing sci-fi and thriller. Reminiscent of Blake Crouch, who I like, and Andy Weir, who I'm okay with. Blending a fast-moving, darkly satirical look at 1940s rocketry with an exploration of the amorality of progress and the nature of violence. And then the last paragraph also caught my eye. It says, a darkly satirical first contact thriller, as seen through the eyes of the women who make progress possible and the men who are determined to stop them. Definitely sounds interesting. I don't know about the satire part of it, but everything else sounds really good to me. So I am going to be keeping an eye out to see what people think of this one. It is also the start of a series, so another reason why I probably won't pick it up anytime soon. The next book I'm excited about is The Project by Courtney Summers. This is coming out on February 2nd from Wednesday Books and is a YA thriller. I have yet to read any Courtney Summers. She's got a number of books out. The one that I've heard the most about, though, is Sadie, which came out back in 2018. But I heard so many good things about that one. And the synopsis of this one also sounds interesting to me. The very last paragraph of the synopsis says, the next pulls no punches thriller from New York Times bestselling and Edgar Award-winning author Courtney Summers about an aspiring young journalist determined to save her sister from a cult. And cults are also one of my bookish buzzwords. So put that together with the fact that people really liked Sadie makes me want to read this book, or at least see what people think of it when it comes out. The next book I'm excited for is The Gilded Ones by Namina Forna, and this is the first book in the Deathless series. This is a YA fantasy that's coming out on February 9th from Delacorte. And this is one that I've been hearing about for a long time. I think the release date got pushed back more than once, maybe, but it seems to be an African-inspired fantasy, and it's about a girl who, at the beginning of the book, she has to go through this blood ceremony to become part of her tribe, but when they do the blood ceremony, her blood isn't red like it's supposed to be, it's actually gold, which is the color of impurity, and Decca knows she will face a consequence worse than death. But then a mysterious woman comes to her and tells her she can stay in the village and submit to her fate, or she can leave and fight for the Empire and an army of girls just like her, who are near immortals with rare gifts. And I think that sounds pretty interesting. It looks like this is going to be a trilogy though, so I'm definitely going to hold off a little bit on reading it, but I'll be curious what people think of it when it comes out. Next, I'm going to talk about The Burning Girls by CJ Tudor. This is an adult mystery thriller that is coming out on February 9th from Ballantine Books. And I'm mostly interested in this because of the author. This is the author of The Chalk Man, which is a book I've heard a lot about. And that one came out in 2018. She also had a book come out in 2019 that I've heard of called The Hiding Place. And then I guess she also had a book come out in 2020 that I haven't really heard anyone talking about yet called The Other People. But this one, the first part of the synopsis says, an unconventional vicar moves to a remote corner of the English countryside, only to discover a community haunted by the death and disappearances, both past and present, and intent on keeping its dark secrets in this explosive, unsettling thriller from acclaimed author CJ Tudor. This isn't one that I'll be picking up right away. I definitely want to see what other people think of it. And I think once I decide to pick up this author, I want to try The Chalk Man first. But because I've heard so much about her other thrillers, I'm definitely interested to see what people will say about this one. Okay, the next book I am really excited about, and I didn't know was coming out until I started doing my research for this video, and that is Game Changer by Neal Shusterman. This is coming out on February 9th from Quill Tree Books, and this is going to be a YA science fiction book. Recently, I've been reading the Arc of the Scythe trilogy. I've only read the first 2 books, but I have really enjoyed what I've read of the series so far, so I was really excited to see that Neal Shusterman was coming out with another book. And also this one has another one of my bookish buzzwords in it. The beginning of it says, an explosive new novel about the limited ways we see our world and how a jolt out of the ordinary can upend the universe. All it takes is one hit on the football field, and suddenly Ash's life doesn't look quite the way he remembers it. Impossible though it seems, he's been hit into another dimension and keeps falling into universes that are almost but not really his own, each one stranger than the last. And if he isn't careful, the world he's learning to see more clearly could blink out of existence. I love alternate dimension, alternate universe books, so I am super excited about this one because not only is it about something that I think is really cool, it's by Neal Shusterman, so I definitely want to read this one. And it's a standalone, so like I don't have to wait. I can just read it when it comes out. The next one I want to talk about is The Echo Wife by Sarah Gailey. This is coming out on February 16th from Tor Books, and it's shelved as science fiction and as thriller by a number of people, but this one also has a bookish buzzword in it for me. This one is about a woman who creates a clone of herself, and then the clone starts having an affair with the husband of the woman that created her, and I think that sounds really cool. I mean, not cool that she's having an affair, but the idea of a clone having an affair with their creator's husband. And clones are something that I think are super interesting to read about, so that's my bookish buzzword in this one. Also, I've heard a lot about Sarah Gailey. I haven't read any of their books yet, but I have heard a lot about River of Teeth, which is like an alternate history where hippopotamus were imported into Louisiana to be bred and slaughtered as an alternative meat source. I've heard good things about that one. And then they also came out with a book in 2020 that I was interested in called Upright Women Wanted, but I haven't read that one. I haven't read either of them. But it's an author that I've heard about before, and this synopsis sounds right up my alley. The next book I'm going to talk about is Play of Shadows by Sebastian de Castell, and this is going to be the first book in the Court of Shadows series. This is coming out on February 18th from Fletcher Books and is an adult fantasy. So I'm interested in this because of the author. This is the author of the Greatcoat series, which I've heard a lot of people talk about and say that they really enjoyed, but I haven't read the Greatcoat series yet. So I definitely won't be reading this one. I'm not entirely sure if it's set in the same world or not, but I probably won't be starting with this series. I think I want to start with the Greatcoats, but I was just really excited to see that this author was coming out with a new book that is the start of another series. The beginning of the synopsis says, swordplay, magic, intrigue, and friendship stronger than iron. The first volume in the new swashbuckling fantasy series by the best-selling author of The Greatcoats. If you guys have read the Greatcoat series, let me know down in the comment section if you recommend it or not. I've heard mostly good things about it, so I'm excited to give it a try. Alright guys, now we're on to the last book that I'm going to talk about today, and that is The Initial Insult by Mindy McGinnis. And this is coming out on February 23rd from Catherine Teagan Books. Looks like this is going to be a YA contemporary / thriller, and it's going to be the first in a duology. I'm interested in this because of the author, Mindy McGinnis. I've had so many of her books on my anticipated releases videos because I've been interested in her books for a long time, but I have yet to read any of her books. I don't know what is wrong with me. I really need to change that in 2020, or I'm in 2021. Oh, actually, I think I might have read a Mindy McGinnis, but it was one that I didn't really like because it was like super weird. Wait, now I need to look that up. Okay, yeah, I'm mistaken. I have read one of her books, and that one was This Darkness Mine. But she has so many other books that I do want to read. One thing that I find really interesting about Mindy McGinnis is she kind of genre hops. A lot of her books are in different genres, and I just find that really cool. The end of the synopsis says, in the first book of this duology, award-winning author Mindy McGinnis draws inspiration from Edgar Allan Poe and masterfully delivers a dark, propulsive mystery and alternating points of view that unravels a friendship forevermore. Depending on what people think of it, I'm going to add it to my long list of Minnie McGinnis books that I want to read. Alright guys, those are 15 books that are coming out in the next 3 months that I am really excited for. Let me know down in the comment section if you have any thoughts on any of these books, or do you have any anticipated releases that I didn't talk about, because I'm sure you do. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more bookish content. That is all I have for now. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bookworms, keep reading. Bye.